All right, I'm here with my friend and client, Dave Denial. Dave, we had a pretty exciting thing that just happened for you. It's something that you hadn't been able to actually make happen in, what was it, 3 years, the past 3 years. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, just my performance has been declining to the point where I had to do partial combat fitness tests, which, obviously you do only one out of three events and do the bare minimum. So it doesn't make for when you're trying to be a leader and lead from the front and you can't perform the physical tests. That's a problem.
Okay. And so, but we managed to, you managed to actually, after probably less than a year of us coaching together, you managed to complete the full test. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So let's back it up a little bit, because obviously that's like a really tremendous result. And I know you had said to me, oh, this may not be like the best case study for your coaching business. And, my reaction, my response was like, no, actually it's one of the best ones yet, because, you did something that was unprecedented for you in 3 years, right? So that reflected like a huge change in a lot of things. So, but just to back it up again, what made you decide before we started that you were truly ready, to commit to a coaching program with me? Like what was the X factor that made you think, yeah, I should do this with this guy?
Yeah, so great question. So I had actually broken my hand. I had what's called a Bennett's fracture, so where the thumb pops off of the wrist. So I had to get surgery, which required, about 90 days casted with my left hand. And then, so of course I'm a military athlete. So, okay, once the rehab's done, once the physiotherapy's done, I know how this works, right? I've been working out my entire life. So, start my strength exercises, coordination exercises, get my cardio in there. I mean, working out is not new to me. I've been doing it my whole life. So I started putting my pieces together that I always do, and kind of get back into fighting shape. But what I found was at, you know, 50, 51 years, because, I had a birthday since then. So 51 years old, the pieces weren't falling back in place, and the thing that I really value about my military service is that they really press in, determination, persistence. If you want something done, go harder. Those tenets, which are valuable, just weren't working in the timeline that I had to put them back together. So I had to evaluate. I feel pretty knowledgeable, but if I had an expert opinion, perhaps I get better results. So then that's where I found you and said, "Hey, let's see what we can do together."
Awesome. So it's kind of a case of work smarter, not harder, was kind of the magic bullet for you, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest takeaways I've taken away for your program is sometimes less is more. Whereas, there's the whole, 10,000 repetitions makes mastery, which is true for like muscular memory and retention of skills. But fitness is not just a skill, it's more than that. And so, kind of backing up from you know, trying to break through walls is okay, let's diagnose the problem. What are we having problems with? And then where do we have to perform? And that's another thing that I value in your program. The kind of standard exercise routines are all kind of linear and so up, down, side to side. And especially when considering the requirements of jiu-jitsu, those requirements aren't linear. They're everything but linear. I guess I want to say success, but it's not success, but progress in nonlinear modalities transitions over to being stronger in the linear efforts, if that makes sense.
You're sure. So it sounds like what you're saying is, um, a lot of the benefit you feel you've gotten is some of the more unconventional movements where we're trying to like do sort of very functional things, whether it's hanging weight, whether it's pause reps or stuff done from extreme ranges of motion, that kind of stuff that's kind of unconventional. And you feel like that has kind of given you some breakthroughs in terms of getting back to a higher level of conventional strength, even, while equipping you for the jujitsu, for the craziness that is jujitsu. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And so, and as a Marine and someone who's been through lots of intense training before, as you mentioned, the sort of de facto method, it would seem, and especially in like the combat arms in the military, let's just say, is push, 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 right? Just kill it with intensity. What was your mindset going into this program? Like, any of this stuff we've discussed, did it come as a surprise, when we reined you in, when we gave you some kind of more unconventional things?
Well, so, a lot of people talk about, diversity of thought, right? So when you have a problem that you've always kind of encountered from your perspective, you look at it and you say, okay, I know how this works. My, the time that I've spent, my experience tells me I know how to solve this problem. And one of the challenges as you get older is, you know, the metabolic changes, the physical changes, change the chemistry, and to where, when I was, 20, 30 years old, it was no factor. I could just you know, get back on whatever I want, whatever physical skill I was working on. I just go a little harder and my body would recover. But I'm at, when I moved here in Abu Dhabi, I have more time to exercise than my body can sustain, which just sounds weird, because one of the things that I love doing more than anything is working out and exercising and training. And so it's not just, techniques, but it's a diversity of thought. It's approaching the problem from a different perspective. And it's hard to do as an individual. It takes a coach to look at you objectively and not, with an emotional, it's more of a logical approach of, here's your problem, let's try to solve it. And, these are difficult problems that have existed for years and just haven't been dealt with. And so again, as you age, as life catches up to you, you kind of make, as an individual, you make adjustments and you end up kind of in a rut. And I really appreciate your coaching for help breaking me out of that rut and approaching the physical challenges from a different perspective.
Awesome. Yeah. And I appreciate that. It's something that, of course, I always try and say to you and everyone else who succeeds in tremendous ways in my programs. Like, I can't make that happen without you, without your trust and your compliance and pushback, even, where you tell me like, hey, this isn't working. Hey, I need this. But that's why we have, like, this elaborate system of feedback and stuff that, helps me to sleep at night, because I know, again, my eyes are on, making sure you're doing things safe and properly. Given that, you scored high on your completion CFT, which is the first one you completed in 3 years, right? 273, was it?
Yes.
And you did that specifically. We didn't even train for it. You didn't even tell me it was coming up. You just kind of let me know the day it happened, right? Which I thought was really cool, because we had been training you mostly for performance in jujitsu. And so you can keep getting those rounds in, so you can go hard like you like to. And also just like have longevity in it, right? So you can maintain a higher level of performance in that in jujitsu for, as long as you can, because I know you want to do it probably for the rest of your life, right?
Yes.
But so beating that CFT out of the blue, right? You did it. You did the whole damn thing. We didn't even train for it specifically. We gave you some running, some kind of a little bit of stuff that kind of paid lip service to it, but still, you scored high. How did that feel to complete that for the first time in 3 years?
Well, and this is where we started the conversation with, well, it doesn't feel like it was a great accomplishment. And one of the challenges as you grow older, and I'm not saying I'm old, what I'm saying is, as you grow older, you have to work harder for a lower result. So, to say that I was ecstatic would not be accurate, but, to recognize the achievement, it feels great. I but, that's a challenging part of being an older athlete is you have to accept the result that the 20-year-old you would be disappointed with. And that's the challenge of growing older. It's not for the weak. You have to be strong mentally to age. But, it's fighting. That's the fight. The fight is not just yourself. It's fighting the age. And the only way that you do that is by pushing against that pressure, you know?
Yeah. 100%. Life is, it happens in time and it's a war of attrition, right?
Right.
We're slowly losing our faculties
Yeah.
when we get past a certain age. And so I think you've really nailed something that's super important for me as a coach, which is why I do what some people say is insane. And I fight at the adult level in jiu-jitsu, and I compete, and I take pride in being able to submit a lot of the younger guys, right? Being able to win a lot of these matches. And it's fun for me, I get these kids who are in their 20s, and you armbar them and all of a sudden they're your best friend, and it's great because, I feel like it's an outlet for me to sort of extend my own wisdom and experience, to people who could use it and who are captivated by what just happened. But I think that's the thing that I really like about you and your determination with this is, it's like you've had this realistic perspective. You understand you're not gonna be able to do all this shit forever at the level that you'd like to, but by just sort of staying true to the process and doing the boring shit that I'm, on you about to do. I mean, look at what you're able to do. You're able to turn things around quite a bit and gain some years back effectively,
Right.
which I think is like that absolutely deserves celebration. When you think about like Dave, and this is kind of personal too, but like I talk to so many guys your age who are just like, they've resigned themselves to just being morbidly obese and unhealthy, right? And a lot of these guys have families, they have kids, they have spouses. And, I talk to them and I'm just like, dude, like, you're letting time beat you, right? Like you're letting your appetite beat you, right? You're letting this happen, like, and it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to spend the twilight years of your life in a wheelchair with amputated limbs because you went diabetic, like nobody needs to do that. It's not like a necessary thing, for anybody, unless someone has like severe, genetic predisposition for that. But even that can be reversed, The crazy thing about so many of these folks is it's like they don't even see the pain that's coming, right? And so, but not only have you seen it, it would seem, you've contented yourself to do the kind of boring, sometimes annoying, sometimes tedious things that you have to do to turn that clock back around a little bit, right?
So some of the things that help me kind of get this perspective is my parents are both in their 70s, mid 70s. And so this kind of really helps my perspective. For instance, my father, he was lamenting about, having to get a wheelchair in and out of the trunk of his car. And he's like, it was really difficult. I don't know how long I can do this. My sister intermittently needs a wheelchair. So, excuse me. So I go, Dad, that's terrible. That's terrible. And then I was like, how much does a wheelchair weigh? And he's like, I don't know, but I'll get back to you. So he gets back to me and he's like, oh, it's 40 pounds. I'm like, Dad, you can't let 40 pounds, get the best of you. Now
Yeah.
that's your training goal. There was
Yeah.
I sent him a video clip. There's a great video of a older man doing a lot of work with a 40-pound kettlebell.
Kettlebell.
But see, James, when we sit here at this point in our lives and we look to the end, you can't catch up at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't.
Just let it go.
Yeah. And it's, you talk, the best thing that we can do is talk to the wise older people that are still doing the hard stuff and say, how do you keep doing that? I said, well, you just can't stop. right?
Yeah,
And so then, you learn that you can't cram for the test. You don't know when you're
exactly.
going to be tested, and the test may not be the ultimate fight. It may be, picking up your grandchild or getting a wheelchair out of the car. But if you don't train for this, purpose behind the training, and that's one of the things um, you had mentioned that the I wasn't really focused on the combat fitness test, and that's true. As I get ready to retire from the military, no one no one really cares about the combat fitness test. How do I increase my longevity? How do I increase my quality of life? Those are the objectives that we're trying to pursue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for you, you've been doing jujitsu for what, 6 years now, and it's something that you really enjoy, and you talked about like this sort of sense of play and vitality that you get from it, and that's something that we share. It's like I can be in the foulest mood, and I walk into jujitsu practice, and a couple rounds later, I walk out, just with this, big fat smile flash on my face. Because whatever it is, there's so many complex and interesting psychological, physiological things that happen, when we go and we play on the mats, right? But I know, like, for you, being able to express yourself in that way is a huge value, right? It's something that brings you a lot of joy and a lot of meaning. So given that, like, what are some of the changes that you've noticed in your ability to move on the mats since we started? Have you noticed any, and what are they?
Yeah, I mean, so what we struggle with in my training program is mobility, hip mobility. Just as you look at kind of we talked about ranges outside of the linear movements. So I'm a 250-pound guy, and so when I go against somebody my own weight, and I gotta get my arms outstretched, and that's, or if I got a bridge to just these skills that I have to be able to do on the mat against people my size. If these ligaments and my muscles can be strong, but if I'm not stretched out and if I'm not mobile, then I'm risking injury. And so what is my training partners have noticed is I've lost some body fat, which is good, and so they can get me in a better guard, which maybe I don't know if girth is a superpower, but having less of it allows me to move more, and that's the biggest thing is when you're trapped on the bottom, and to get off of the mat is almost a Herculean effort, and it takes movement in a non-linear fashion, and it takes explosive strength. And again, not counting the other person, but if I weigh 250 pounds, which I'm not sad about, I want it to be as much muscle as possible. I probably need to be more like 200 pounds. But if I can move fast with explosive power in any direction, that's the skill that I need.
For sure.
But that
No,
just doesn't
agreed.
happen by walking around and just doing back squats and bench press and military press. You gotta push yourself.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of stuff to work on like your trunk strength, your core strength, your lower back strength. A lot of stuff, like you said, to mobilize the hips and even the shoulder joints, and to give you, that those capacities. So beyond the physical improvements, though, like, obviously this has been a really substantial shift for you, to be able to complete the CFT, what that represents. What has this all meant to you personally, like internally? Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
So so I always reflect on starting jujitsu as one of the best things I've done in my entire life to improve myself holistically. I mean, so it's we live in a time where stress is all internalized, and there's you know if you're working in any type of a job, you're usually sitting for hours on end, and just kind of you're just spending the rest of your working year just grinding yourself to the bone. And jujitsu has been an outlet, both physically, mentally, and all, not to get all woo woo, but spiritually. I mean, to find, mastery of your body, the challenge to, is it 3D chess? I don't know, but it's definitely a competition, friendly competition, but still you got to stay sharp mentally and physically. And you can have the sharpest mind, but if your body will not respond, it doesn't work. And the same thing is your body can be honed to a fine-tuned machine, but if you don't have the understanding of what you're doing, it doesn't work. And I had the opportunity to attend a seminar with Exande Ribeiro, a guy who's like, you know, no one's passed his guard in many years, right? And so
Yeah,
like,
in like
you
over a decade.
right. And so, you're here at the seminar and you're like, okay, show me the secret technique that allows you not to get your guard passed. And the first like 40 minutes of this seminar, we just rolled over on the mat and and it was all about movement. And we're like, no, show me that thing that doesn't let people pass your guard, And he's like, literally, it's using, he just wanted to teach movement and how all these movement patterns are what's needed to maintain your guard. And so this is what jujitsu is not about moves. It's about movement. Those movement patterns can flow, but, and then once your belt gets a little more colorful, you start recognizing those movement patterns. And then, it doesn't AAB, backspace, go, there's a pattern.
For sure. Absolutely. Okay. And so, you decided just a couple months back to renew for a 1-year term. Our first term was 6 months. What made you make that decision?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I appreciate the results. I mean, I'm definitely getting results physically. I love the program and I still want to get better. Right. And so the things that I appreciate about your program are actually the remote aspect of it. So again, I've been a lifelong military athlete, worked out a number of different ways. I've tried all the, high intensity. I don't want to name any brands, but I've tried them all, like all the different workout routines to try to find the um, best, program to follow. And I don't need somebody standing next to me telling me what to do. I understand the fundamentals. I can squat, I can deadlift, I can bench, I can adapt those processes. I don't need somebody yelling in my ear. What I need is what you actually provide, which is you do coaching, and I take videos when I'm at the gym like a TikTok champion, but and that's a
Yeah.
little weird for me. But what I do is I see the value in the remote coaching. I don't think I would really enjoy kind of an in-person coach as much as what I do is. So I love the accountability. I love the programming and I love the results and the method works. And so, I don't have to wait for when I have a booking with you. I travel quite a bit with my
Yeah.
job, so I can in a sense, take you everywhere I go.
Yeah. I'm in your pocket on your phone.
Yeah. And so, I think I'm on my about the sixth or seventh workout sheet that's been personally tailored to what my objectives are. The weights have been scaled appropriately to where it's difficult, but I'm not breaking myself. I'm improving, but I'm not getting sore, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And you're still fresh for jujitsu the next day, usually
Right.
when you
I
lift.
mean, I train, I'm working out every day, 7 days a week. Most weeks I'm working out and I'm still able to do the things because you have tailored my program and to kind of help me look at some things, try to help improve my sleep, try to improve my diet. And then all this has made for a better, system to where without your assistance, by the time it got to Wednesday or Thursday, I was a broken person physically. I was sore. I was, not getting the results that I wanted.
Sure.
But,
And
and
so
I was just
you
like, I was just breaking myself.
And would you kind of like cut it off midweek and be like, I'm not going to work out for a couple days?
No, of course not. I mean, come on, you just keep going, right? Because if if whatever is hard, then you just go harder, right? That's the mentality some people take, is like, hey, if I'm
Sure.
sore, good, I'll just do more. But it
But
turns out,
obviously, you weren't able to complete that CFT for a number of years. The kind
right?
of the proof of the efficacy of just push through, rah rah rah, like
But that's what
yeah,
it takes. It takes an evaluation and a bit of detachment to stand back and say, okay, I've been working at this for a while. How do I solve this problem? Well, I need some help. I don't need help because I'm helpless. It's just I need to fine tune what I'm doing. You know,
and what's funny with so many of my Marines who have been very successful, which I certainly count you among, one of the biggest challenges, like me being like, hey, we're taking away 2 or 3 workouts a week, and that's final, like right, or we're not going to push as hard here, and even just from that change alone, oftentimes you guys just like your performance skyrockets, right?
oh yeah,
Which stands to reason. But then when we start to make the more granular changes and we start paying attention to your weights, your exercises, the way you're moving, your nutrition, your sleep, all this kind of stuff, that's when we really start to see like, okay, like, it's a game of inches and a game of tiny little details that all sort of add up, right? So looking back, like what advice would you give to someone like in your position, like someone in their 50s, say, jiu-jitsu guy, military guy towards the end of his career, or someone with injuries, especially in the case of a lot of these guys, like I told you, they've kind of resigned themselves thinking it's too late. They're like, oh, like I'm okay where I'm at, or they'll rationalize, be like, oh, my cardio is good. I never get winded. And I'm like, bro, you're 300 pounds, like it
yeah.
doesn't matter if you feel like your cardio is good, right? What would you say to these guys, who are injured, who are out of shape, and who are they've just kind of like compartmentalized the idea that they could improve here and have better quality of life, and they just shoved it out of mind? What would you say?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is you don't have to go at it alone. And that's, I don't know where some of these guys are coming from, but what I kind of infer is there's a feeling of, if I just work harder, things will get better. And, my encouragement to the people in that situation, whether they be kind of the demographics you described, you know, you're not in it alone. And the best thing you can do when you're having problems, is not more cowbell. It's ask a professional for help. And, and then what would you do if you broke your leg? You go see a doctor. Okay, well, what would you do if you're physical? And this is problem, I don't want to go off on a diatribe on the American health system, but it's designed to treat symptoms as they occur and minimize symptoms. The challenge is if you're, especially the demographic you described, if you're a man struggling to get something done and you're not making good progress, you need to ask for help. Help somebody that's going to look objectively at your situation, and kind of break down your obstacles that you're dealing with, and some of those are in your own mind, like you described, again, for most of your life, I could only speak for myself. For most of my life, working harder has gotten me out of the situation I was in. And so, but there comes a point of time where that's not working anymore. Neglecting to look at things from a different perspective will have catastrophic results. Not now, but I can only imagine if I don't have kids, my wife and I, we don't have kids, but like I can imagine the lessons you're teaching your son or daughter of like, hey, if you have a problem, get help. But I'm not going to do it. Why shouldn't I follow my own
Yeah,
advice?
yeah,
Right? We tell everyone, hey, if you have problems, get help. Well, get help. You know, if you're stuck, you need help. You may not want it,
yeah.
but the results are insanity, right? Doing the same things over and over again, and expecting different results.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Great. And so last question for you. I know you came to this with all the spirit of a Marine's Marine who's, been in service for, by infantry standards. I know you're pretty much a dinosaur. You're one of the top, you're one of the guys out there, probably, I would guess almost a handful of guys your age who are still in service. Yeah. But granted, you bring this kind of spiritedness and this trust and this faithfulness that's kind of characteristic of your creed and your way of life as a Marine. But has there been a lesson you've learned about perseverance and faithfulness through this, perhaps even trust through this process with me?
That's a great question again. The biggest thing that I've taken from you is kind of like it's even the foundation of warfare, right? Modern warfare, there's things called surfaces and gaps, and we call it maneuver warfare. And the idea of maneuver warfare is to not throw your forces against the surface, which is like a heavily defended position, heavily opposed. You try to find the gaps and exploit those gaps. And what you're doing is textbook maneuver warfare. It's like, okay, here's the challenges. How do we attack those challenges without breaking ourselves on the defenses? And then, the warfare is not about having fair fights. It's tipping the battle to your advantage. So it's like, how do we get to our objective without destroying the force, that object? So we need to maneuver around. There's an economy of force. So put all your forces at the critical point in the battle and exploit that gap.
Sure. And I suppose I could see how that works in terms of us like working on weaknesses, right? Working on things where you don't have established strength, like ranges of motion but why don't you tell me how that analogy breaks down in terms of our work together? I'm really curious to hear the explanation there because I think it's a beautiful lesson I've just been taught. I want to know more.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way that you construct a workout, first of all, so there's really one major like focus of effort, right? So the workout starts with that one, might be heavy, might be, in this case, we're talking about squats, and I don't need to go heavier. I need to go lighter, but focus on range of movement, right? So there's still a focus and a purpose of the workout, but then everything else in the workout supports that effort. And so it's not just, 100 reps of squats will make you stronger. It's let's attack this problem a little bit head on, but we'll also look to support those other efforts. And then the main goal is the overall improving the performance in the squat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I see that. And so what we're talking about is just the fact that the program is highly structured and we have lots of sub goals that kind of like center around primary goals, right? And so we decompose.
So I'll go one more piece. So it's not, and it's not, if I want to have strong shoulders, right? It's not doing a ton of reps that just actually destroy the shoulder at the end of the workout and you can't even function. It's being able to focus with exacting methods without overwhelming the body, right? So, if I did, 100 clean and jerks, I would be stronger, right? But if I did them at a weight that would be challenging, and I don't normally do that number of reps, I would be destroyed. It's the problem with some of the other exercise, hit exercises is, if you normally do 50 push-ups or whatever, and then you try to do 1,000, that doesn't necessarily make all the improvements that I want, especially at this age, right? So I'm not going into the number of reps and sets that totally break down my body. I'm doing enough to challenge those efforts, but also I work on the supporting muscles.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's, I think what you refer to, it seems to me, is we give you a variety of different tasks, a variety of different focuses that all contribute to the sort of the common effort and goal of the training session, rather than just like you said, we could potentially just have you do 100 heavy reps of a core lift and have you, wear out all those sort of primary structures, right? But since we shift to like, okay, we're going to get your rear delts a bit now. Oh, we're going to get your rotator cuff a bit. Okay, now we're going to get, we're going to do some movements that work on your upper chest or whatever it is, right? That shift in the quality of the programming, to focus across different indexes. Yeah, I
But
think I think
but
that's what
see
you're
that
saying.
from a client perspective, I need that, and I
Yeah,
need to know what I value is your solutions to the problems that are outside of my scope.
of knowledge. Yeah,
And so, whereas before we started working together, and I was trying to get back in shape, I was doing a lot of strength programs, cardio programs, but I wasn't able to see like the supporting efforts, right? So I do the super heavy squats and super heavy bench and military presses and pull-ups, but I wasn't really getting the results. I'm still doing those things, but it's with all the supporting efforts that make your program really valuable to me.
awesome, awesome, cool. Okay, I think that about wraps it up. So I will stop this.